thought I was going to have to start playing piano. Page 57. A page number would be great, wouldn't it? Page 57. Years I spent in vanity and pride, caring not my Lord was crucified, knowing not it was for me he died on Calvary. Mercy there was great and grace was free. Pardon there was multiplied for me. There my burden fell on liberty at Calvary. By God's word at last my sin I learned. Then I trembled at the law I spurned, till my guilty soul imploring turned to Calvary. Mercy there was great and grace was free. Pardon there was multiplied to me. There my burdened soul found liberty at Calvary. Now I've given to Jesus everything. Now I gladly own him as my King. Now my raptured soul can only sing of Calvary. Mercy there was great and grace was free. Pardon there was multiplied to me. There my burdened soul found some liberty at Calvary. Oh, the love that grew salvation's plan. Oh, the grace that brought it down to man. Oh, the mighty gulf that God did spend at Calvary. Mercy there was great and grace was free. Pardon there was multiplied to me. There my burden found liberty at Calvary. All right, you want to go ahead and we're going to do with this song coming up, we'll do the, I think there's a good one, I got it right here. Sorry, going to do the offering. We're going to sing this song twice and do the offering. 128. Page 128. I saw it and I knew it was the right one. The windows of heaven are open. The blessings are falling tonight. There's joy, joy, joy in my heart, since Jesus made everything right. I gave him my old tethered garments. He gave me a robe of pure white. I'm feasting on manna from heaven, and that's why I'm happy tonight. The windows of heaven are open. The blessings are falling tonight. There's joy, joy, joy in my heart, since Jesus made everything right. I gave him my old tethered garments. He gave me a robe of pure white. I'm feasting from manna from heaven, and that's why I'm happy tonight. All right, Brother Gary. Just because I like that blue shirt. You can go ahead and pray. No. And if you guys would like to know what page that is, that's 134 for that song. I had it right here and you started playing it. No. Must be some ESP or something going on there. Hey, that's sports. Page 134. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. When I was a seeker, I sought both night and day. I asked the Lord to help me, and He showed me the way. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. He made me a watchman upon the city wall, and though I am a Christian, I am the least of all. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. While shepherds keep their watching o'er silent flocks by night, behold, throughout the heavens there shone a holy light. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. 'Twas in a humble manger that Christ was born. The God of all creation became a child that mourned. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ was born.
All right. A couple quick announcements here. Maybe, there we go. Kids Christmas program on the 17th. Perfect plan. And so One of the things I like about the program that the kids or the ladies have kind of built and the kids are putting on is it doesn't just cover the birth of Christ and the true Christmas story may begin in a manger, but it ends at an empty tomb. And so they'll be covering the full, perfect plan of salvation of Christmas. And then they'll have a Christmas party afterwards. And then New Year's, have a New Year's service. And then Brother Jeremy Peters, Brother Ryan Giles will be here with us for that. So looking forward to that. All right, John, 3 John. 3 John. All right. 3 John, and you can stay seated. We're going to read the whole chapter here. 3 John. The elder unto the well-beloved Gaius, whom I love in truth. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. For I rejoiced greatly when the brethren came and testified of the truth that is in thee, even as thou walkest in the truth. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. Beloved, thou doest faithfully whatsoever thou doest to the brethren and to strangers, which have borne witness of thy charity before the church, whom if thou bring forward unto on their journey after a goodly sort, thou shalt do well, because that for his name's sake they went forth, taking nothing of the Gentiles. We therefore ought to receive such, that we might be fellow worshippers to the truth. I wrote unto the church, but Diotrephes, that guy, who loveth to have preeminence among them, receiveth us not. It doesn't matter how many times I practice these names. Every time I get up here, I'm going to butcher it. So I don't even know why I try anymore. Verse 10, wherefore, if I come, I will remember his deeds, which he doeth, prating against us with malicious words, not content therewith, neither doth he himself receive the brethren, and forbiddeth them that would, and casteth them out of the church. Beloved, follow not that which is evil, but that which was good. He that doeth good is of God, but he that doeth evil hath not seen God. Demetrius hath good report of all men, and of the truth itself. Yea, we also bear record, and you know that our record is true. I had many things to write, but I will not with ink and pen write unto thee. But I trust I shall shortly see thee, and we shall speak face to face. Peace be to thee. Our friends salute thee. Greet the friends by name. Father, thank you again for all that you've done for us. Pray that you would meet with us for just the next few moments as we take a look at some examples that of how men walked, of how men lived. May we learn from those. May we take encouragement and be challenged by it. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. I'm trying to get the sound here. Let my iPad die on me, and so I'm trying to fix it from my phone real quick here. And so we live in a world where people are looking for role models everywhere we look. We've almost marketed the term role model. What I mean by that is in a day where we have social media, and social media is everywhere, from TikTok to Twitter to Instagram, Facebook, all that. We have these things called social media influencers, people who influence people, and most of the time these people, I'm just going to be honest, don't have a lick of talent. Not that they've shown any, they just literally are just recording their lives or recording themselves doing dumb stuff, and all of a sudden they've become influencers, role models. I think back I remember, I'm a big basketball fan, and I always liked Charles Barkley. Probably because he was not the most in-shape person on the court. He was usually the most out-of-shape person on the court, so it just gave me hope, I think, that if Charles Barkley can be fat and play basketball, maybe so can I. But I remember one time, because he had a bit of a temper, and he made the statement along the lines of this, of, I don't want to be anybody's role model. I'm not a role model. Here's the thing is we don't get to choose. Look, Gary, you don't get to choose if you're a role model or not. Now, you can make choices to deter people, but that still doesn't negate the fact you have children, you have grandchildren, you guys have got great-grandchildren. They're going to look up to you, and they're going to watch how you live. They're going to watch how you respond to things. Miss Pearl, you have family that was watching you this year as you were dealing with your daughter's health issues. And they know you're a Christian. They know you claim Christ. They know you pray. And they were watching how you were going to react. You, whether you like it or not, were a role model to them. Sometimes we have good examples. I can think of Brother Tim Ross, who I consider my pastor, who, Lord willing, you guys will get to meet in June of this year or next year. He'll be here for homecoming. I consider him one of those good examples. Valerie will joke around, and there's things that I'll do around here, and she'll say, all right, you need to let the Brother Russ in you calm down a little bit, because, you know, I get it going a little bit, and I start running faster than I should, but he's a good influence. Brother Decker is a man Joe Decker is a man who had positive influence on me. But I look back, and I'm just going to be honest with you, I can think of some preachers and some pastors who have not had a good example, who have been a good example for me, who have not been the picture of a godly leader. And what we see here in this letter that John wrote to the church here, he's going to give 3 examples, 2 good and 1 bad. And I hope at the end of this we'll look back a little bit like we did last week and just say, where do we line up? Where, out of these examples, do I fall more in with Gaius or with Demetrius, or do I fall in more with that Dio guy that I can't say his name on? And so here's what we see. Here's some good examples. The first 8 verses, we look at a man named Gaius, or Gaius, however you want to pronounce it there. What did he do that made him such an exemplary believer? Well, it's 3 things I think we nail down. 1, he was faithful to the truth. It says, for I rejoiced greatly when brethren came and testified of the truth that is in thee. It says, even as thou walkest in truth. Greater joy, or I have no greater joy than to hear my children walk in truth. Now, real quick, I want to understand here, it wasn't saying that was his son, as much as he was saying here that he led him to the Lord, looked at him as a child, of a spiritual child. And so now he's saying there's no greater joy than seeing one of my children walk in truth. He's saying there's no greater joy than seeing someone that I have the opportunity to lead to the Lord, continuing walking in the Lord. As a pastor, but as a Christian in general, I've seen the people who God's allowed me to have a little bit of influence in their life, and I see them continuing in church and doing well, and there is joy in that. But I can think of the names right now of people who have come to church at some point, who made professions, who maybe did well for a while and then fell off. And it hurts. You to see them either backsliding, or maybe even the profession wasn't real at all. That's between them and God. But we find joy when our children, spiritual, walk in truth. He was faithful to truth. We touched on this in the last couple of weeks. I'm not going to hit it hard. But we live in a disinformation age. We live in a place, in a time where truth really is at an all-time value because it's so hard to find. It's rare. I can go and whatever my belief is, I can find somebody to back it up. Whatever it is, no matter how crazy it is, I can find somebody to back it up. I just watched a clip of it, of a debate that took place at a church in Tennessee. And I air quote church. I use that word very loosely here. One of the preachers who was debating, his stance was, the earth is flat. I'm not kidding you, this happened on a church platform. His stance was that the earth was flat. Now this other preacher was taking the stance that the earth is not flat. And you'll say, well, hey, at least there's one man that stands for truth. Besides the fact that this guy also believes that Christians can be possessed by demons, that you need to be, that deliverance ministries of casting out demons out of Christians are prevalent. This guy's all wacko too. So there was a church who's having a debate between one man who biblically believes in a flat earth and another man who biblically believes in the continual works of the Spirit that have ceased to exist, including in casting out demons and other things. And these are church leaders. There were hundreds that attended. There was no truth to be found anywhere in this 5-hour debate. By the way, I love a good argument and a good debate. I don't want to listen to any two people talk for 5 hours. I don't care what the subject's over, much less this. Here's what I'm saying. This happened in a church. If there's a place where we should be able to find truth, it's in a church. But anymore, that's not even the fact. That's not even the case. And we have false religions and teachings sneaking their way into our churches and into our reading, into our lives, and we have got to be careful. So what do? We're stay faithful to truth. Well, what is truth? This is truth. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word, what? Was God. And then in John it says, I am truth, and the truth shall what? Set you free. We have the truth. Here's the problem. You want to know, by the way, I'll tell you, the one man is Greg Locke. He used to be a good Baptist preacher. Now he's a crazy man that preaches heresy. Here's the problem. He ceased to be faithful to this and began to be faithful to, well, himself, really, or knowledge, power, popularity. I care more about what's in this book and you holding to this than I do any platform, any popularity. When push, think of a couple who just lost their son. Truth is what's going to help them right now, not nonsense. They don't need someone sitting there trying to cast out demons in their family right now. They need someone just to love them, to tell them that their son's saved. It hurts now, but there will be a reunion day one day. That we have a God that we can love and we can trust and we can put our faith in, and that He comforts and that He gives peace. Lean on Him. The problem is we no longer have truth and we hold to, well, whatever the world's selling, whatever makes your flesh feel good, whatever boosts your ego. He was faithful to truth. Not only was he faithful to truth, but it says this, he continued to walk in truth. Well, what does it mean to walk? Well, to walk isn't just simply putting one foot in front of the other. That becomes hard to do sometimes, doesn't it, Miss Pearl? No, walking here, it means to imitate. Well, what's he imitating? Truth. So he's not only is he faithful to truth, but he's continuing to walk in truth, to emulate truth. What does that mean? It means that their life is one that depicts a godly example. It means the way they deal with things are biblical. The way they love is biblical. He's dealing with the church here and church leaders. The way he deals with the church is biblical. The way they lead the church is biblical. Why? Because he continued to walk in truth. So many times we've seen it where men will start out well and something happens and all of a sudden the truths that they've held for years and years and years all of a sudden don't mean as much anymore. Here's one thing I've noticed. Is these men take a good hardline stand against sin until their kids become adults. And their kids no longer hold the same standards as they do and start to do the things that the dad called a sin years ago. Now all of a sudden that the kids are doing it, well, maybe it's not that big. And by the way, I believe both of those have happened. I believe we've taken a hard stance on stuff that in the end wasn't as big of a deal. But I believe that there's stuff that we should take a stance on, but because we don't want to hurt our kids, we don't want to hurt our family, we don't want to hurt our group, we lax on them. The truth doesn't change. And if it was biblically true then, it's biblically true now. There are no new revelations. There is nothing new under the sun. So we're going to continue to walk, to emulate truth. Not only that, but he worked together with other believers for truth. Now here's one where we've got to get better about. This church is not the only church in Pekin. It's not the only good church in Pekin. And the minute we can stop making enemies of other believers and start working together, it would help not only us, it would help this community for good. I'm not talking ecumenical. I'm not talking linking up with people who doctrinally are different. But there are doctrinally sound churches that for whatever reason we make enemies of. We're competing. That's how it looks. It's competing. I don't want to burst anybody's bubble. But the last I checked, Pekin had about 30,000 people in it. We have enough to go around. I mean, if the 4 or 5 I think of, if we would just run 1%, we would still have, I don't know, a few thousand to go around. We got to quit making enemies of everybody. Pray for them. Love them. Help them. All it does is, in the end, is it hurts us. It hurts the name of God. You know, I'm thinking right now, my home church there in Owensboro, Kentucky, who has gone through just the issues over the last year and a half. And there's 2 churches, there's 2 other good churches in town. And there's one church that a big group of people will not go to. They've never been there. They've never sat down and had a conversation with the pastor. They don't know anything about the ministry. But here's what they've heard. Because the pastor of my former church made enemies of everybody. He badmouthed every other church in town and every other pastor in town, like Faith. So then whenever he messes, just now think about this. If I badmouth every pastor in town and tell you how ungodly and how undoctrinal and how unbiblical they are, and then I mess up, well, where do you go? Because I've already told you why you shouldn't go to every other church, and now you can't stay here, and all you've done is hurt people and hurt churches. I don't have to see eye to eye with every single person, but they're not my enemy. They're not my enemy. So we get along. We work together. There are churches who wouldn't have even taken prayer requests like we took earlier, simply because that family used to be members here. That's ridiculous. If there's anything we could do for the Hutchison family or any other family that used to be members here, we would do. Why? Because they're not my enemies. We already have a common enemy. Brother Gary, if you and I would just concentrate the rest of our days fighting Satan together, we would be busy. We would have more on our hands than we could handle. We don't have to fight each other. So he walks in truth. He continues in truth. And then he's worked together with other believers of truth. Then we see Demetrius. We see this in the last few verses here. verses 12 through 14. Here was his good traits. He had a good reputation with the congregation. The congregation didn't think of him as a troublemaker. They didn't think of him as a heretic. They didn't think of him as someone who didn't care. He had a good reputation with the congregation. What does our average Sunday morning crowd think of you? Are you friendly? Here's one for you. Sunday morning when you come into church, look around. Is there a face that you've seen multiple times that you've never said hi to? That you've never shook their hand? That you've never said, hey, thanks for being here? What do they think of you? Do they think you're the most friendly, the most kind? He had a good reputation with God. He had a good testimony with the Lord. I can think of men in my life right now. I think of Mose Johnson. I've told him before that he looked out in the city of Owensboro and said, most people don't see what I see. I was like, I just see cars. He said, I just see lost souls. I know his testimony. I know his relationship with God. It's genuine. It's real. I've seen him. I've seen him in tough situations. I've seen him in storms. I've seen him in times of victory. I've seen God in that man. I can also think of the men of God who claim it, who I'm going, I've not seen much spirituality in them at all. That relationship, it's evident. Miss Pearl, you cannot not have a relationship with God and it not eventually shine through. You can only fake a testimony for so long. Eventually, your relationship with God will become evident to those who are around you a lot. And a good relationship will also be evident. There are those people where you just go, they have a love to them, they have a cheer to them, they have a care to them, a passion, there's just something different about them. They had a good reputation with believers outside the local congregation. So what about the bad example? Verses 9 and 10, I wrote unto the church, Diotrephes, who loveth to have the preeminence among them, receiveth us not. Wherefore, if I come, I will remember his deeds which he doeth, prating against us with malicious words, not content therewith, neither doth he himself receive the brethren, and forbiddeth them that would, and casteth them out of the church. He gossiped maliciously about John and other believers who were striving to be obedient to God. That's that G word we don't like to bring up. Here we see, in plain black and white, getting reprimanded for gossip. He's gossiping against John and against other believers in the church. Gossiping is never okay. And I know it happens. Y'all don't think I hear as much as I do, but stuff gets back to me. And that's why in the business meeting on Sunday nights, I say, please ask questions. Because I know you have them. And I know whenever something happens you don't like, it'll get talked about. Not to me, but it'll get talked about. And this isn't a feel sorry for me. Listen, I'm thick-skinned. I can take it. But just because I'm the pastor doesn't give you the right to talk about me. And it doesn't give you the right to talk about each other either. And I'll go a step further. You listening to I don't gossip. You're right, you don't. But you've got an ear the size of this building. And you will listen to whatever anybody will say. Well, I'm just looking out for you. If you're looking out for people, you would say it stops here. I'm not trying to listen. Say, well, someone said something about the pastor, he's mad. No, not recently. I think I'm pretty good right now. But I just know how it goes. I know that there have been people in this church that have been hurt because people have talked about them. And then, going back to last week's service, we wouldn't just make things right. We wouldn't just ask for forgiveness and move on. It's never okay to gossip and to talk about one another. Here's the biblical thing. If you have a problem, go to them. Instead of me going, Abe, did you hear about Miss Pearl? Here's what she said today. How about, hey, Miss Pearl, I heard this comment you made. Maybe I'll even give her the benefit of the doubt. I don't think you meant it in an ugly way, but it maybe sounded that way. And then we can talk it out. Now, she may get upset with me because it's never easy to have hard conversations. But in the end, the best thing for us to do is to have an honest conversation about it. Talking about one another isn't the answer. And listen, guys, I know that typically we play this off as a ladies' issue, but we are just as bad about gossiping as they are. We just like to, we could just doctor it up a little bit better. Ladies, they don't try to hide it. They just, did you hear about so-and-so? Us, hey, brother, I got a prayer request. Did you hear about so-and-so? You can't gossip about one another. Gossiping, I believe that's one of Satan's biggest tools that he uses is infighting within the church using gossip. Bunch of busybodies running their mouths. That's mean. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to be honest. I've seen good people hurt because other people don't know when to keep their mouth shut. He gossiped maliciously. He refused to welcome traveling Christians. Here's something we're going to do going into the new year. We're going to have some ministry sign-ups. One of the things that I want, especially on Sunday mornings, is a team of 2 opening that door, shaking hands, welcoming people to service. Why? Because we need to be the foremost at greeting people when they come into this church. There's no reason why this shouldn't be the friendliest, most welcoming place in town. But we see the bad example are those who are unwelcoming, who don't want it. I know of and I use this word very loosely as well. I know of a preacher who was pastoring a church who, by the way, I tell you what, he took that church from all the way from 100 down to 9 in 2 years. He was talented. And he would have people show up at his church. They're having a tent meeting. And there's a family that was traveling through, and they weren't going to make it home in time. So they stopped at his church to go to his church service because they would rather make it in church than not go to church at all. And they weren't going to get to their church. And he met them at the door and said, where are you guys from? Oh, we're from so-and-so's church. He goes, well, then that's where the church you need to be in. And ran them off. Everyone should feel welcome here. And if they shouldn't be here, that will get dealt with in the time that it needs to be dealt with. But I'm not meeting people at the door checking their membership cards of other churches and other places. Now, I don't want to build a ministry off of the members of other churches, but I'm also not going to kick people out. We don't know why someone may be here that day. We don't know what the circumstance may be. All I know is maybe God had a hand in leading them here for a certain reason. Maybe God knew the message they needed to hear. And if all of a sudden I decide I'm God and they don't deserve to be here, then I'm hurting us. I'm hurting the church and the testimony, the name of the church. I'm hurting the name of God, and I'm hurting that family as well. Not only did he not welcome Christians, he stopped those in the congregation who wanted to welcome other believers and had them kicked out. You go, now Brother Lee, this sounds crazy. He had church members kicked out because they were friendly with other Christians? Yeah, it sounds crazy. Until you realize it still happens today. There are churches who will not let their members fellowship with believers of other churches. because of the pride and ego of the pastor. That is not godly. First, here's what this boils down to. Here's what John was trying to deal with. There's a godly way in which to run a church and to be a member of a church, and there's an ungodly way. And part of the ungodly way that he's pointing out was Diopetrus, or whatever his name is. He's wanting to be a dictator behind the pulpit. God didn't call dictators to stand behind the pulpit. And God didn't call for church members to put up with dictators behind the pulpit. We're supposed to be representatives of God and representatives of His church and His Word. And to do that, there's certain things I can't do. And to be a jerk and to be hateful from the pulpit's one of them. So I'm to be loving, and I'm to be welcoming, and I'm to be friendly. I'm to be, our first reaction should always be one of a right hand of fellowship and love, not a right boot. The reputation in churches have been hurt because of the attitudes of its members and its preachers. This, we're better than you. We're holier. We're more spiritual. This, us for no more. This us against the world attitude. And all it's done, this ultimate separatist attitude, all it's done is hurt churches and hurt the name of God. Again, I'm not saying we're linking up with the Catholic Church in town. I'm not saying that I'm inviting I'm not inviting the Lutheran and the Methodist preachers over here to preach. What I'm saying is there are a lot more Christians and brethren in this city than what we're going to give credit for, and we've got to treat them right. And we don't know who's walking in that door, and we don't know what they're going through. But we're to treat them like God would treat them. So from the top, when I say the top, listen, we know He's the top. I'm talking about in physical form here. From leadership down, we have got to set the example. So let me ask you, he says, verse 11, Beloved, follow not that which is evil, but that which is good. He that doeth good is of God. He that doeth evil hath not seen God. So let me ask you, where do you fall? When you start to examine your heart and your life and your attitude towards the church and walking in the church, where do you line up? Are you setting a good example, or are you setting a bad example? Are we walking in truth and staying in truth? Do we have a good reputation with our church? Do we have a good reputation with God? Do we have a good reputation with other believers? Or are we hateful? Do we despise others? Are we rejecting of others, even of other believers? Or do we sit here in our ivory tower with our nose stuck up high in our glass house as we throw stones? So where do you line up? Father, Lord, I pray that more often than not I would be found like Gaius or Demetrius. Lord, I pray that we would be a people that hold to the truth, that will walk in truth, that will fellowship and help other brethren who are walking in truth. I pray that our testimony amongst each other would be right, that our relationship with you would be right. I pray that our relationship with our community would be right. And Father, if there's any wrong attitude and wrong heart here, if there's anybody here who has ill will and hatred towards the brethren, who has the wrong thoughts and ideas towards your work, Lord, I pray they'd get it right. Father, may we be that example that you would call us to be. May we be that lighthouse and beacon. Father, I just thank you and I praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's all stand. Now we'll sing just a chorus here. If I can find one. Who has a favorite chorus? Let's do number 9. Let's do number 9. God can do anything but fail. We'll be dismissed. Here we go. Ready? God can do anything, anything, anything. God can do anything but fail. He can save, He can keep, He can cleanse, and He will. God can do anything but fail. He's the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. God can do anything, anything, anything. God can do anything but fail. Well, thank you all for being here tonight, and I hope you allow the Lord this message to speak to your heart. If there's anybody that should walk in truth, it's us. If there's anybody that should be a walking example of what God is, and not in His love and in His unity towards others, it should be us. There's no room for arrogance, for pride. There's no room for dictators and bullies in the ministry. And may we be, may the reputation of our church be one that loves this community. Brother Bobby, appreciate you, sir. Why don't you pray and dismiss?